So thanks for coming. As you can see, my name is Paul Franklin, and we're going to be talking about inline editing for the next 45 minutes. And I'm here with my business associate, Mark Smead, partner in crime, that's flown over with me from London, and just to talk to you about something that we guys are passionate about. Well, probably like many of you guys, we have to deal with supporting our clients, don't we? And the fact is, more often than not, IT isn't intuitive, is it? And I think that's because it's not natural to our environment. I mean, for instance, if you go down to the supermarket, right? That's what you call it here, supermarket. That's right, supermarket. And you look at the grocery section, you'll see that people will pick up an apple, they will touch it, check it, and there's some kind of feedback, isn't there? But when it comes to the internet and systems like Joomla, users are required to navigate through different admin screens to make the changes they need. And this can be disconcerting. But with inline editing, we can change this. And that's why we are so excited about this technology, And I'm going to be honest with you, and I'm going to reveal the problems with developing the first inline editor for Joomla, our struggles, our solutions, what we see today, and what we think needs to happen. Our story starts back in November 2013 at the Boston Joomla World Conference. Was anyone there? There you are, And I met up with a few interesting people, as you do with these kind of conferences, and one of the guys there was Mark Lee from Stack Ideas, and he gave me some objective feedback on our extension at the time. And it was tough love, but it made me think that we didn't need to do the same old. We needed to do something new. And when I arrived, this guy here, Mark, picked me up from Heathrow Airport, and it was there in the Costa Coffee House that we set out the definitive plans to develop the first inline editor for Joomla. And however, our vision back then, as it is today, isn't just limited to inline editing, but it's to take a look at front-end management as a whole and see what we can do to bring the project forward, because I think there is lots of improvements that needs to happen to the front end of Joomla, to improve the workflow. Well, what is inline editing? You'd thought it would be an easy question, right? But you'll be surprised about the amount of confusion surrounding the topics and the amount of inquiries and conversations we've had. Because I think it's like inline editing has become the new buzzword for all different types of editing. And I want to quickly show you some of these different types and why I think inline editing is revolutionary. This is something called pop-up editing. And these systems, they have an edit icon on the side, which is added to the page. And when the site administrator clicks on it, they're taken to a dedicated pop-up screen, as you can see like this. And it does not exist as part of the original web page, and often the styling can completely change. These can be a little bit unconcerting, for your users, because it's like it's there and now you're somewhere else. Does anybody know what this one is? MailChimp, yeah, you can see by the logo. But this is what we call split editing, and it's a very popular one. And as you can see, the right screen is automatically updated within the left. And these types of systems are often adopted from site and template builders. This is something much more closer. This is the X-editable, and this is an in-place editor. And as you can see, it allows you to edit elements within the page or form. But this doesn't allow you to create new elements, And the fact is, all of these editors, and even the standard WYSIWYG editors that you'd get in the back end of Joomla, right, have got us where we are today. But they are not inline, in-context editing, which matches more like a word processing experience. Should we take a look? Sure, let's go. So here we are, here's inline editing, and it's radically different because it embodies the idea that we no longer need an admin screen. And it makes it super easy for the user. They can just touch and edit and type, as you can see there. It remains within the original page, and all the styling and content is exactly the same. And we don't have to navigate away to another screen unless we want to link to a file or an image. And we can jump from a module to a Joomla article. We can create new content, add new headers, update images, as you can see here. See, edit tabs live. And also this works for modules as well. And what we can do is we can even remove the need of needing to use a media manager, and we can just drag and drop our images straight from our desktop and upload it into the web page. And this also works for documents as well, PDF documents, and you can set the height and width of the image, and that will be stored away in the users folder. Okay, and there's always an instance where you make a mistake. But as we're jumping from module to module, it's not like we can use the traditional undo and redo buttons. And so what we've done is we've extended versioning to the modules, so that can be restored if the user makes a mistake. And so perhaps you think this is a bold statement, but I believe that inline editing is the future for all client-side websites. But it's not just me that thinks this. You see, we've already got a collection of inline editing, dare I say, plugins for WordPress. And you know what? And now there are CMS systems such as Impress Page, such as Inline CMS, such as Surreal CMS that are jumping on the bandwagon. And so it's very clear that the industry is moving in this direction. So where is Joomla? Well, if I'm honest, I don't think that we've given it a lot of thought yet. It's still very new in the Joomla world. And that's one of the reasons that Mark and myself are here. You see, we've had to do a lot of work on our side to support inline editing. But we're hoping that we can change this. We can hope that we can bring this more within the Joomla CMS system. Well, to get things moving, okay, we've developed a free, open source inline framework for third-party developers. And it supports Joomla components as they have editable screens. And so far, using this technology, okay, we've been able to extend it to third-party extensions such as Zoo, Flexi Content, to Joomla's intro and full image article parameters in third-party templates. That was long. And we've also had some conversations this weekend with Sebastian from Cellblog. And there was a lovely lady from Fabric. She's not here, is she? But what's her name? I can't remember her name. Robbie, yeah. And so there's some kind of conversations going on. So I think that we're going to see some more support in that area. And lastly, we've also been working with custom fields, which is going to be native in Joomla 3.7. And this means that support for custom fields and DB fields will follow shortly. So how have we been able to do this in Joomla? How have we been able to make this happen? Well, first, we needed to find a way to modify Joomla without hacking the core components, such as Joomla's article manager. So the question is, how can this be achieved? Well, Joomla gives us certain hooks, okay, such as system and content plugins, which is really helpful. And this allows us to grab the HTML content in the database and display it out inline. But on the flip side, this has also been our biggest headache with the system as it is today. And the problem arises, okay, and this is because there can be lots of clever things going on with content plugins, such as JavaScript, transformation, animation, events being triggered, which means that the resultant text isn't necessarily how it would look in a database. Now, and that may sound confusing, so let me try and clear that up for you and show you. Okay, so in this illustration, we've got our plugin, okay, over here, and it is listening and scanning, okay, for the HTML5, the syntax tag, which would be stored in your database. And this also could be a class or an ID or something else. And when it finds it, hey, presto, it transforms it into whatever it's designed to be. So this could be a banner or something like that. But in the back end in administration, you see it as a little syntax tag. Okay. So let's say someone has a lightbox gallery with a bunch of certain events. The problem here is that these events could easily be lost and not easily reattached after inline editing, i.e., after the user has finished editing a particular piece of content. Now, we could refresh the page, but that would kind of, defeat the purpose of inline editing. We want it to happen in real time. So, if you've ever used a plugin like All Videos, you will know that we have to place a syntax tag in the article to get the media player to work. And in fact, there's hundreds of plugins that work like this. And on the front end of the site, the content plugin, as we just said, does a bit of magic, and hey presto, we've got a classy looking media player working. Okay. Well, that is until your client comes along, all excited about the latest inline technology, and they log on the front end of the site that you've put in, okay, and they edit, and it disappears. And next, you've got your client screaming down the phone at you, what's gone wrong? Because that was part of the site, right? So, what can we do? Well, what probably needs to happen is that Joomla to develop a framework for content plugins. And so we've had some great conversation this weekend about how that might happen. But I suppose the question is what can we do today? Well, ever since we've had HTML5, we've had browser-side support for audio and video elements, okay? And this is supported in all mainstream browsers. So, what's really cool here is this stuff actually remains in form when editing, and it allows us to preview, upload, insert, play, edit, okay, your audio files and media files live in your browser. It keeps its form, in other words. And the great news is that we do not need to have any complicated syntax tags or placeholders anymore. But when you think about it, we only really ever use content plugins for media stuff because we didn't have HTML5 playback in the day. And so we had to use stuff like Flash, right? So we don't really need to work in that way anymore. We don't need to have a content plugin to render it out because there's the browser there to support us. Well, what else can we do? Well, with popular frameworks such as Bootstrap and UIKit, we can do anything, as these are the libraries or the building block for your website. Content plugins, templates, or components. For instance, you only need to open up your browser's developer console and look at a plugin like WidgetKit from UThemes, and you can look at the code and you'll see that it's got lots of UIKit classes, you see. Or we could look at other extensions, and you'll see that under the hood you've got Bootstrap at work. So, why do we need to hide this stuff away in content plugins? As we know, Bootstrap and UIKit, and as we know what it is, we can reattach these events, which is very exciting because the first time the user can interact with the content live. They can click on a tab, they can edit it, and they can switch to another. And there are loads of cool stuff within Bootstrap, like tabs, accordions, galleries, carousels, all which are inline editable. So you might be saying, okay, that's cool. Okay. But how about the management of these widgets? Surely we need some kind of sort of admin to add a new instance. For instance, if you was using something like WidgetKit, you would have to add your title and your content underneath, wouldn't you? And then you'd have to have another field with your title and your content. So how can we add new tabs? Well, over the last few weeks, Mark and myself have actually, and our team back in London have been working on this. And what we've been able to do is something very exciting. And using jQuery, we can now add, edit, rearrange, and delete Bootstrap tabs. And you see what we are doing, we're going to be working and rolling this out for everything. That, when I mean everything that UIKit and Bootstrap will kind of offer us. And so I'm very excited about this because if you want to see this, this is the new frontier for inline editing. Yes, we've done content editing, right? But now we can actually start moving into doing widgets. And we can completely lose the admin. So using this, using snippets, we can harness this cutting edge technology, which means that for the first time ever, we can actually lose the admin completely for your clients. Well, I hope you found this insightful, and I hope I wasn't too boring. I would like to invite Mark Smith to come up, and we're going to answer any of your questions that you may have. What do you think so far? It's pretty amazing stuff, isn't it? Yeah. It is. That we can, you can set up a site and you don't even need to have an admin. Yes, sir.
So if you're using UI kit, like if you have a theme widget kit installed and you're using that UI kit front end editor and you're creating something just from the front end, will it also show up in the back end in the same way?
It will do, yeah. It will render exactly the same way in the back. So, say that again, sorry?
Yeah. If I just build it from the front end, how does it talk to widget kit?
Okay, so what the editor's doing is basically rendering the classes. So in the admin section, the editor calls to the front of your site and gets all the JavaScript and all the CSS information, and then renders it in the admin. So the admin tries to accurately represent how the front will look. So it will get as good as you can get, basically, before the admin CSS interface may interfere slightly. I mean, at the moment, we're only supporting the Bootstrap elements, as Paul was saying. Yes, that's right. But we're looking to push that forward on the next releases of everything we're doing. Because, we tried the hardest to get the tabs working in accordion, and we got the tabs finished. We was like, okay, we've got accordion to do now, and then the image gallery, the accordion, what's the scrolling one called? I forget now. But all of that will come, and all of that's manageable both front and back. And because it's all stored in the content, and because we're putting all the CSS through from the front to the back, it should look perfect.
We also have something that we've been working on, which is Arc Widget. Okay, and what that does is, just as you would go to Bootstrap or you go to UIKit, you'd get your whole samples of code. Okay, in essence, what this has is a whole repository of all different kind of elements that you would have, whether or not it's your carousels or your tabs. And so the idea is that you could modify your own kind of carousel for your client or something like that, and then it would be within, you can click on a button and it comes up with all your kind of snippets, and then you can insert it, and then that user can modify it. And the thing is that I mean, your question is a really good one there. I think the point is there anything that you could do with widget kit can be done within UI kit? Do you get the point? So the possibilities are limitless. And anything that can be done with any other plugin is basically using kind of Bootstrap. So there isn't going to be any limitations. I'm not saying, but it's exciting, isn't there? Especially when it comes to the ease of use that you can present your clients. Imagine you have a carousel and you can go to the second carousel and they can click and upload that image, create a new image and then add a new tab. And really what we can do is just completely lock out the back-end administrator, and so your users can just be working on the front in real time. So that's kind of where we're at, yeah.
If I say, after this, if you come to our stall, I can show you how it's actually working. And you can see a live example of the tab system working from the front and back. We can clarify it all.
Any other questions?
Hold on.
Okay.
All right, so this is very exciting, and my personal use context would be one where I have built and designed and established a baseline for the website, but now I'll have a number of different users, we'll say clients, just to keep the nomenclature easy, who will be adding content, but I wish to constrain the areas in which they can add content only to a certain page. And my knee-jerk reaction is that categories are the right way to manage that, along with access control levels to restrict them to that. Does that fully propagate through this interface?
Yes, it does.
Well, that was an easy question.
In essence, we're not building our own exclusive component. It's just working on top of Joomla, right? So anything that you can do within Joomla, you can do that. And so, you know, if it's got permission to edit, it will edit. So it's exactly the same. Exactly the same. I mean, there is one class that we've got which is for no edit, which some elements you wouldn't want to be editable, like such as your logo. You don't want to, you know, when we first implemented inline editing, you'd go and touch a logo and you'd be editing the image, right? But we've got to lock some things out. So I'm not saying that there isn't some kind of setup, you know, but in that situation, you don't want anyone to edit your logo. So there may be things like that which you can completely block out from use, but the rest that it's just based upon Joomla's user permissions. So if you give it permission to edit, whatever you do, whatever user group, they get permission to do it. So yeah, it's no problem.
So a guest, for example, won't be able to do anything.
No. That's correct.
Yeah.
Just as they wouldn't be able to do anything now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's yeah.
Let's say an article is displayed such as it's using several fields. It's using a headline, it's using the author's name, the date, maybe it's pulling in the images and some of the links, because there's several different fields you can go, plus the whole body itself. When you're editing this, are you editing just the body? Or are you also editing all these individual fields, and are they editable individually? So let's say the headline's put here, the photo is put there, the body is off to the side, and the author is somewhere. You can't just move that author's name and put it somewhere else. That's still fixed. Am I correct?
That's correct. So the way in which the templates render your article, we're not interfering with. What we are allowing you to change is to click on the title of the article, and then you can modify that. You could click on the intro image, change that, and click on the body of that text and change that, and the intro text. So the article will still render the same as the template wants it to, but you can change the content within it.
Okay, so each time you're editing one of those fields that corresponds. So there might be 5 or 6 fields contributing to that. That's right. Blob sort of thing. Also, if there's some styling applied to it, like the headline's supposed to be an H1 or whatever, and with a certain class to it, are they in the front end able to override that, so they can change the color and font size?
So this is down to you. So if you give them the option to have the style list, then they could select the text and change the style. Or you could say, I don't want my client to be able to do that because I've made this a piece of work, a piece of art. So you can remove the style list, and then they couldn't do it. And then all it would do is adhere to the settings and styling you've set up.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, for anything, even the author, if it has some special class assigned to it, so it's styled a certain way.
Because that's set by the template.
That's
but,
correct.
but if you do inline, does it apply inline things like font size and things like that? That's what I was wondering.
It gives it the inside what the template already wraps.
Okay, you're just changing the text, but you can change other. Okay.
It's a funny one because although I haven't tried it, it's depending on how the database saves it. If the database allows you to insert HTML within the title, which I don't think it does, then you can't override what the template's doing. Where the database is allowing us to save HTML, like in the body of the article, etc., then we can change stylings if you let them. So it's all down to the database and what it's allowing us to do.
And one unrelated question. You mentioned that you extended versioning to cover modules.
That's correct.
There's so many different types of modules out there, and each one would have to have a special record in the database, as I understand it. I mean, how do you handle it for all modules, or only for like the custom module, or what? What?
Yeah, for custom HTML modules, yes,
custom
that's
HTML,
correct. Yeah.
but not the other ones. Just
that's correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
yeah.
That's it?
Super easy, isn't it? So there's no questions. That's how it's meant to be, you know. So, anything else? Last thoughts? No.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. That's. Well, we're going to finish 4 minutes early then. Thank you very much for your time. Have a good one.